We are recording and streaming on Monday. Oops, on Monday, August 25th, 2025 at 1:03 p.m. Eastern Time with Mr. Stephen Murray, Mr. Tom Luongo. I don't know if I've had you guys on together before. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, and I apologize. I just
Well,
ran
Steve and I have been
wrong
on
show.
shows together,
Yeah.
whether,
Okay. All right.
be
Then
it,
you guys know each
yeah,
other. Um,
yeah,
and
oh,
then yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. And I really have no idea of what we're talking about. As always, I make this shit up. I just put in. I just saw like whatever was in the news was like the National Guard is out carrying weapons. I was like, all right, we'll just throw that up there. I think it'd be, and guys, for everybody listening, please go in the description. Please go follow the Twitters, and you can also find Tom's blog. Kind of what you said last time, Tom, on the bald ones about, why have the Nat guard there? He's going and meeting with Putin. I'm like, okay, but they're still there, and it seems like it's going to spread to other cities. And I guess we do have Stephen here who has a military background. What is this? Are we seeing the real thing? Or is it it's I think it's dog shit that it's a cover that this guy was jumped, so we bring in the National Guard. I mean, this shit happens minutely in the United States. It kind of seems like dog shit. I don't even really care. I think everyone in that city is a demon anyway, so they probably should be
Right.
quarantined by the National Guard. But like, why are we seeing this now, and why is it still going on? And what is the real reasoning behind this? Not that you have the answer, but I hope you do.
I
You
mean,
want to start, Tom,
what,
or you
you
want me
mean
to start?
with Trump nationalizing Washington, D.C. and all of that? Is that what you're talking about?
Just in general, yeah. And by the way, we don't have to even go into this. If you guys want to talk about something else, we can just fucking throw
No,
that.
that's fine.
I don't give a
No, I
shit.
mean, it's pretty obvious he's getting, I see a pattern here with Trump. And I'm not going to like belabor this point because I've gone over it a dozen times in other podcasts. I see a pattern here. Trump is absolutely going after City of London. He's absolutely going after the crown, and he's absolutely trying to free the Commonwealth, starting with the United States and moving around. And the first part, and the first way and what you have to do is have an excuse to bring the District of Columbia back under federal law and not under its own law. So that's just one angle on it, and it's that angle, and it's being played out, and it's another angle on it's another piece of data, I guess is the better way of putting it, with all of these other pieces of the puzzle that are being laid out, and that I see, and that's the big game, and they're screaming about it, and every day they're screaming harder about it, and I'm like, cry more, nubble it. We're gonna, continue to like roll your fucking shit in the wet spot, and roll your shit in flour and go for the wet spot. I mean, that's what we're gonna do. Like, and like, we're done with your bullshit. We're done with running your playbook for the last 500 years to stay in power. I'm sorry, but folks, we're not the evil empire. It's never been us. It's always been us having been subsumed into something that we weren't. It's the same thing with the English people. Like they never wanted empire. It was always their fucking elites that wanted empire, and they didn't get anything for it. And we haven't gotten anything for it other than debt and slavery. And I'm sorry, but that shit's tired, and nobody wants to live under that system anymore. And the world is democratized in terms of capital flow and in terms of capital formation to the point where they can actually step up and say, that's enough. We are putting an end to you people. When this crap came up in the 1860s and during the American Revolution and in those periods of history, and even World War II or World Wars I and II, no, the center of the global economy was still Europe and or its satellites, and that's not the case anymore. And so they ran their locust play on destroying, taking over one area, destroying it, ripping it, building it up, and then tearing it down and moving all the factories and everything else to another country. And that was supposed to be China. China brings Xi Jinping to power and says, you know what? No, sorry. He's a true believer in all things Chinese. Keeps the capital account closed mostly, and traps all their capital behind the friggin' wall, and then says, that's nice. As I start purposefully blowing shit up, you're the last in line to get paid. And that's exactly what they think. Xi Jinping has cost them trillions. And it's been hilarious when you really stop to think about it. The guy may be a communist and I may hate him and everything else, but you got to, don't hate the play, I hate the game, right?
Yeah, he
So
played that
that's
game. He played that game well. Yeah,
yes, he has.
we'll be your backwater production facility for all your cheap shit. And then like that, never mind.
Oh, and then yeah, fuck a whole lot of that. We're keeping it.
Steve.
So that's what I see, Steve. Like that's where I see where we are. I mean, it's not
Well,
perfect, but it is what it is. So
I'll tell you what I hear, what I've heard, what I'm hearing, and what I see, because I'm not sure what I believe. Um, so there's multiple lines of operation that could be accomplished by moving troops into the city. Let me just start with the fact that moving troops into a city means the Roman legions are marching on Rome, and that's not a good thing for us. It's not a good thing for the country, and it's a bad precedent. One of those lines of operations is you get the country used to having troops on the street and law
Hmm.
enforcement capacity for martial law. Number two, I'm hearing that the pre-positioning troops in blue cities they know are going to be a problem for when the arrests start from all these grand juries that are going. So
mhm.
we haven't seen any arrests yet, and I'm not sure I believe we're going to see any arrests. But if that's the case and that line of operation is in play right now, and you're pre-positioning troops because you know that part of the base on the left is going to lose their ever-loving minds when they arrest Obama, which they should,
Yes.
um, then that makes a lot of sense, and it definitely debunks the narrative that some dude got beat up on a street and we need to send in 1,000 troops. But remember, there's only about 550,000 in uniform in the Army, and half
Yep.
of those are reserve and guard. And the combat units are in the guard. They're not in the reserve. Reserve is combat support, service support. So you don't have a hell of a lot of troops there to dole out to all these major cities. And let me tell you from experience, a couple of thousand troops is not going to hold a city like Los Angeles. You can't
Nope.
even hold a city block with that. So people need to tailor their expectations to what they're there for. My guess is they're there to aid law enforcement in quelling riots
Mhm.
when they start. So that's the second line of operation. Third line of operation could be far more insidious than that, which means they're normalizing troops on the ground and they're normalizing violating posse comitatus and using troops in law enforcement capacity. That one we should all be very, very upset about. But what do I think? I don't know what to think. There's definitely in the background, there's definitely Palantir and the
Hmm.
and the surveillance grid that they're building at breakneck speed. And there's definitely a shift from the European Union towards Israel and other parts of the Middle East, including Doha, et cetera, where there's um, a lot of hubs of, let's just say, military activity and intelligence activity. So I don't know what I believe, to be perfectly honest. I see a lot of things right now and a lot of narratives developing, but a lot of these narratives turn out to be garbage narratives just to confuse people. The one that
I
go ahead.
I was going to say, so I'm going to say, I see a civil war narrative. Everything you just said tells me that that's what we're gearing up for. That they know that they're dealing with the potential for an actual, honest to God, boots on the ground color revolution by Obama style brown shirts. So
I don't think there's
you're
enough of them, Tom. I just don't think there's enough of them because
enough of
the,
who?
the reason here's why I say that. And sorry for interrupting you. Here's why I
Yeah,
say that.
no,
The
enough of who?
the
The
brown
brown shirts.
shirts, yeah, the brown shirts that were present during Chaz. Remember Chaz?
Yep.
The Chaz, right?
Chats.
They were paid. All of the Antifa, the BLM, a lot of those protesters were paid protesters, and they were
Yep.
moved around the country on buses. All that money's dried up with US aid being rolled up.
Mm-hmm.
So
Agreed.
I don't think there's enough of them. But however, I think there's enough of them to create civil unrest that could develop into a civil war. Because
Exactly.
remember, the entire country is completely fed up with the corruption, even the left. And I'll give you a case in point. I spoke this weekend up at Yavapai preparedness team, and I talked about the current situation, right? Everybody, bar none in that room, over 100 people, I said, does everybody think something big is coming? Everybody raises their hand. Does everybody think that's economic? About half of them raise their hand. Does somebody, do you think, the other half, do you think it's an extinction level event? They all raise their hands, right? Everybody knows something's coming. They don't know
Mhm.
what it is, right?
Right.
You could feel it. And whether that's civil war or not, what I think is all we need is a nudge, just a nudge. And this will be a full blown revolution. And I think that it's going to start out and look very civil warish, but then we'll see some things disclosed. Because look, we're not done with Epstein. I don't care what anybody says. That's not going away. And there's a lot of highly pissed off mega people that thought that Trump was going to disclose all this because he ran on it and he didn't do it. So now he's got an existential crisis and all the
That's a
distraction.
way overstatement. I'm sorry, Steve. I'm going to push back on that seriously hard. I don't buy that for a moment.
You don't think so?
Really? No,
You
I
aren't talking
really
to people I'm
don't.
talking to.
I think Epstein is like everything else is a poison pill dropped on Trump right before Gabbard was going to start dropping all the shit on Obama's head. It was the timing on that was perfect. And it's the classic open wound that never goes away. It's a poison pill. It's
That's
a guy.
right.
I mean, Trump was right. It's a thing that never dies.
This is the part that there's look at the Q movement, right? Those people are believers. They believe like these timestamps and all this other crap.
I know
that
they do.
spend all their time mastered.
But dude, they're like libertarians. They don't matter. They're not.
Well, I think there's more of them than you think because there's a lot of where we're
the average person on the fucking street here in North Florida is just wondering when can we start shooting these assholes? Trump can deputize half of Florida and quell any riots. You want to see what actually happens in any of these blue cities? I will give you Gainesville, okay? And the 50 boomers will show up and put themselves in cages, and they'll start something on the east side of Gainesville over by Lincoln High School. And then guess what? Like 20 rednecks will show up in pickup trucks and MAGA hats, and that shit will be over. And Epstein won't matter because this is about our home. Like all of this is, I know it's like information warfare. I know
you're not going away, man.
Guy, I'm telling you.
I'll agree to disagree with you. How about that?
Hold on, before we completely derail, I want to go back to the points you were making.
If shit gets real at home, it's not going to matter. The MAGA crowd is not going to turn on Trump.
We were in agreement on that, right? Yeah. We were in agreement. Let me just get this out of the way.
Yeah,
I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck about Epstein, right? I don't give a shit who was on the island. I don't give a shit who was on the plane. What I want to know is if there was an op going on, I want to know who was running it. I don't care about all the rest of it because there's a simple solution for all the people that were repeat offenders on the island. Bam, you're done.
Epstein
done. Right? Were you on the island? Did you have sex with kids? Bam, done.
The Epstein story has nothing to do with the friggin' quote unquote pedophilia. Has everything to do with building the architecture of the actual NGO network that we're gonna have to fight a friggin' color revolution for.
We're gonna have to
he built that network. He ran all that money.
Yes.
And that's
all the other shit.
And all the other and all the other stuff, like the fucking libertarians are just dumb. And Trump has got leverage. Trump is using this shit by not giving out. He's using it as fucking leverage. But whatever's left that's there, he's going to use as leverage to get people to do what he wants. Build Back Better. The big beautiful bill should have never passed. No. That Congress, that Senate should have never passed, but somehow it got done.
I wonder why. I wonder how many are compromised.
Yeah, but hold on before.
But who holds them in the envelope quotient on all the people who held their tongue and held their nose and actually voted for it. Like it's so obvious at this point. This is so much of this is just classic fucking City of London bullshit. MI6 bullshit. A lot of
kayfabe. Yeah, you're not off base there. There's a lot of kayfabe in this. So, Tommy, you wanted to go back to something?
No. The reason I wanted to bring it. Sorry, I'm down for all. You guys have done this shit.
I actually like it when you lose your shit, Tom, because we settle on something that's real, right?
Yeah.
Look. Here's the problem with the Epstein shit in the first place. That this evidence has been around for how long? 10, 12 years?
Yeah.
I mean, half of it's probably been tainted. The other half's been destroyed. The stuff that matters is probably in somebody's basement. You're never going to get to the truth. And even if you do get to the truth, nobody's going to fucking believe it anyway. right?
Right.
So you're going to be sitting there going back and forth about, oh, that's true, that's not true, right? But the, the point I'm trying to make is a lot of people are not going to let that go. And, you know, even if we see, because I want to see Obama and Brennan rolled up, I really do. That that has to happen
Mm-hmm.
because it was supposed to be 12 years of Obama or 8 years of Obama and then 8 years of Clinton and then
Right.
basically start COVID and drive us into the
Mm-hmm.
new world order, right? And that was
Mm-hmm.
disrupted. The the movement and center of gravity towards the control grid and the surveillance system. I don't know what to think about that yet. I've really formed an opinion on it. I don't like the optics of it, and I think they're moving at breaks breakneck speed for a reason. I just don't know what it is yet.
The reason I want to hit on the net because again, we can do all this. I don't give a shit. I love that stuff. What's more curious to me is like the net. It's that's happening today, and it's not trivial. It's not some random leaker going. I heard indictments are. There's actual guys with guns in this
Dude,
city.
they just hit John Bolton on Friday. Like, if
Okay,
you don't want a
I know,
better,
but
hey, yeah, I
that's
mean,
what
if you
I'm
want a
just
better
curious.
signal, that's real.
That's what I'm
It's
more curious about is I'm for going all the way down to like the moon's not real and it's filled if it was real it's filled with Jewish lizards. Like I'm there, let's do it. What's curious about this to me is like this is actually here. It's kind of the big things are coming. Yeah, 2 more weeks,
No,
but
big things
now
are
it's
already
but that's
happening.
what I mean. So that's why I wanted to touch on it before we completely derail. Is like
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
it's here. It's
Well, no,
actually
because
fucking
I
here.
seriously, like, I would be, I would be as skeptical or not as skeptical as Steve as to the pace of what's happening here if I didn't see Trump and Putin in Alaska a week ago, Gabbard killing off the Five Eyes intelligence sharing over negotiations, or removing Anthony Blinken from being able to even enter federal buildings to coordinate with these people, or of course raiding John Bolton.
Yeah.
Okay, you start by raiding John Bolton because he's supposedly a Republican. He's never been a Republican, but he hates Trump, and that's fine. But he's not a Democrat. So far, Trump has gone after Democrats, and it's given them the ability to say, "See, he's just going
Political.
after his
Got
political
it.
opponents." And blah blah blah. No, he just went after John fucking Bolton, and the next guy he should go after is Mitch goddamn McConnell. Like, you know what I mean?
um,
Like, that's what you
full
and
stop,
then you set the
Mitch.
stage for them. What's that?
Full stop, Mitch.
Yeah. I mean, so like that's happening. Bolton ties into all the MI6 stuff because he was intelligence sharing all across the Middle East, all across Europe. He was doing all this shit that he shouldn't have
Pompeo's in
been
there
doing. They're going to
too.
get Pompeo's and all that. I'd
Don't
love to
forget
see him
that
go after
piece of
Pompeo.
shit.
Of course.
Yeah.
And so this is political time, as Alexander Mercouris always said to me ages ago. Political time works slow, or it works faster than legal time. And that's where the rub is. And the British know this. And these people know that, and they know how to use that to create anxiety in the zeitgeist. And they use that time mismatch on purpose. And that's why everybody 3 months ago or 2 months ago we're screaming for Pam Bondi's head, or Kosh Patel's head, or Pete Hegseth's head, or Tulsi Gabbard's head, or whatever they were directing us towards at that moment in time. Again, it's an intelligence operation. This is what they do. At some point, you just have to say, look, this is the general we have, whether we like it or not. Trump is not perfect, but he gets the gig because what he's been doing all year is going after the root causes of where this stuff actually comes from. And he's trying to strike the root of this by dismantling NATO's efficacy and so that's the pattern of behavior that I'm seeing here. Is he going to make mistakes? Yes. Is he going to lose battles? Of course he is. It's a fucking war. Like, these people are good at this shit. Like, it's not like they're complete imbeciles. I mean, von der Leyen may be an imbecile, but the person running von der Leyen is not an imbecile,
Correct.
right? So, you just have to, like, this is where at some point you just have to say, for the average person who doesn't spend his life on Twitter or steeped in the news cycle, or they're watching what's happening and they're going, Cool. They sent that to Bolton. Wow. Like we might have peace between us and the Russians. Like, and then what Trump is doing is setting the stage for reversing and reforming all the institutions that got us to this point. His attacks on the Fed, blah, 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 blah. So, it's a process. And yeah, we should have already been frog marched into Agenda 2024, Agenda 2030, or whatever, and it didn't happen. And because it didn't happen, now it's all messy. And
Well,
messy is better than where we are,
and
what they had for us originally.
Well,
that's
let's go
also
back to
no,
something,
it's a
Tom,
huge.
and I go
Hold on,
ahead.
real quick. I was gonna say just as an aside, and that's such a huge thing to go like when this doesn't happen. It's not that it was some random business venture that didn't work. Uber Eats for fucking game, whatever. It's like they were pretty. They looked like this was the end stage of like 100 years of planning of like digital passports, vaccine passports,
Right.
and BlackRock, and you will own nothing, and you'll be happy. To now Trump's in office and he's dismantled. Like that's not a negligible, like, yeah, it didn't work out. Like when I have plans for things and they don't work out, I go, yeah, okay, that's Monday. This was the most powerful people on earth, and we're not in them, which tells me that the opposition to that is not just Trump and his hard-headedness, that he has his own fucking counter mafia, and that's equally powerful to the people who were seemingly rolling out a digital totalitarian hellscape, which is
That's what I think.
insane. But Steve.
I think part of his counter mafia is the guy he can't say is part of it, and that's Vladimir Putin.
Oh, I believe that.
I mean, I think he and Putin are, clearly intelligence sharing, because if you look at, I see all the preemptive moves that Trump is making in order to stop the color revolution stuff, starting with DC, starting with how he handled the LA riots, right? That's straight out of Putin's playbook to stop the color revolutions all across the stands in Kazakhstan and Belarus and all the rest of it. Some of
Well,
them got a little farther out of his control. He didn't win. He didn't beat all of them. He lost in Armenia. It almost got dicey in Belarus, but the general plan is once they come out, and I have something else that I know, having talked to some people, in the administration, that what happens here is that they're almost baiting out some of these protests. They're baiting this stuff out so that so they attack. So, for example, they sent Tom Homan in to break up some cartel money at a laundromat in LA, knowing full well that the response is going to be to try and start a riot. And at that point, one, they paid a whole bunch of people, so money leaves a trail. They know where the money's coming from. They shut down the sources of the money, and they immediately were ready to go with the National Guard and the Marine. And boom, 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 it was over in a couple of days.
yeah, I was going to say
So,
it's text, but what they've done. So
Yeah, pull it out. Yeah.
let's go back to January when he took office, right?
mhm.
When they did Doge, and look, I don't buy the Trump Elon public spat. Never did. I think that's all kayfabe. I think it was all done so he could gracefully depart the government and go run his space program and get us to Mars or whatever he's going to do. The the classic move though was you take the funding sources away from terrorist organizations and then you start to dismantle the leadership. And we saw at the same time Tom Homan going in the cities, taking out the worst offenders. By the way, these are my conspiracy glasses, my Jack Cruz conspiracy glasses.
I like them.
So um, they went after and this is the part that people don't understand, is that we had a lot of very, very, let's just say, well-trained, highly efficient, not just cartel, but cartel, terrorists, you name it. And they knew where all these guys were. They knew where a lot of them are. Now, there's still a lot of Chinese here, PLA. There's still a lot of Iranians here. There's still a lot of other terrorist organizations. But one of the things I've seen in the last year is Al Qaeda is moving away from doing kinetic actions, and they're moving more into the Muslim Brotherhood model, which is they put people in key positions and put them in public office in the countries that they want to influence. So I don't think the kinetic danger is there, which is why Trump is able to use the Guard and Reserve to back him up to go against the communist part of this. Because remember, China is still heavily involved, which is where a lot of this is coming from, is China. And people aren't talking about it. But the PLA are active here. And remember, San Francisco, Xi Jinping was there, rolled out the red carpet, Chinese flags, whole 9 yards, cleaned up the streets.
Yep.
So there's as much Chinese influence here in all these blue cities. And from what I understand, this is going to be a big presence in a lot of blue cities because they're expecting, riots, et cetera. We'll see how it plays out. But they did this in a very strategic and a very methodical way to take away the funding sources, which is why I don't think BLM and Antifa are nearly as powerful as they could be because they don't have the horsepower behind them to move
Right.
them around the country and incite violence. However, we are seeing, and one thing I am seeing that is not just disturbing, but I'm watching the moral fabric of the country falling apart as these people on the extreme left and the extreme right, it's not just the extreme left, are losing their shit and going off the reservation, and we're seeing more and more and more of that. I'm 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 hoping that as the fall develops, we see arrests happen, we see disclosure of
Yeah.
why they were arrested, we see transparency in the court cases so everybody sees what they were doing in the back end, because there's a lot of the public that doesn't understand all the different incestuous relationships between all these people and all the different ways that they've been able to launder money. Because let's face it, Epstein and the drug trade were run by the CIA, run by Mossad, and it was a way to launder money for them to do illicit activities and to keep things off the book with plausible deniability, right? Epstein's not the only island. Diddy was not the only island.
Right.
Everybody in fucking Hollywood's involved in it. And my solution to that, bam, court costs saved, right? So, in fact, I just say I'll be doling out forgiveness one round at a time. Um, the thing that I think is going to be interesting is over the next several weeks, the first arrest will be the tell who they arrest because if he starts rolling people up, he's got to arrest the Clintons. They have to be rolled up, bar none, full stop. They have to be rolled up because, in fact, I'll just use my bias and my stereotyping. I think those two are responsible for everything that led us here. I know that's not true, but
Right.
I just like blaming them for everything because I can't stand either one of them. They're miserable people.
Go for it.
So,
They are.
but I see multiple lines of operation in play right now. And what's hopeful to me is the fact that the Border Patrol and more importantly, the cartels have been very, very silent. Because I figured this was going to be a hot war across the border. We see politicians, we would see, sheriffs, we would see city council members killed in their sleep, and we haven't seen any of that, at least that I know of. So
Yeah. No.
whatever
Yeah.
Trump's doing, the message is getting out.
Well, there's that, and all of that is I agree with Steve, and thank you. And just to point out, as you said, bringing up the seasonality of this, people don't protest in the wintertime.
Nope.
Only in California where it's the same friggin', where summer, winter, where it's the same friggin' play, the same friggin' weather 12 months out of the year. But they ain't like, you ain't going to see guys on the streets of Philadelphia in December. Like, you know what I mean? Like when it's not happening. The same thing in Minnesota, same thing in Seattle, blah, 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 blah. And so Colorado's, was it? I'm sorry, Boulder, Colorado. Yeah, that ain't happening. You know what I mean? Like it may be in Gainesville, Florida, but again, it was 25 boomers and a couple of gangbangers. Like really, it's like it's nothing. Like DeSantis can go in there with the entourage he brings in to do the Doge audit of the Gainesville school board and the county commission and roll that thing up. It's not even an issue.
Well, I that's a good point, Tom, because that's something else that Trump's working on that I don't think people realize is tied in with all of this malfeasance with Obama and with Brennan, not just with the January 6th stuff, but wrapped up with all of the election malfeasance. And this is, I'm just going to say that this is what I've heard. I can't validate any of this. But all of that is wrapped up in the election still as well. Their fingerprints are on all of that, on the machines and who was running the machines, and all of that's getting ready to come out. I know that's coming out because and when that happens, if they do what I think they're going to do, when that happens, that means elections in at least 12 states will be overturned. It means that legislation that was put in place from 2020 on will be overturned. And it means that anything that was done in a governor's race that was co-opted by the machines, all null and void. So you're going to see, and then people are going to go to fucking prison for that. I know that for a fact because I've heard that in two different two different places that they both said the same thing, and these guys are in the system. Nope, we are actively investigating the criminality around the elections in 2020, 2022, and 2024. And I know they're here in Arizona looking at the elections and from a criminal standpoint. And it all ties back to the machines. I could tell you here, run back the people that were running the ballots and no zero chain of custody. There's
Right.
a mountain of evidence right there to arrest all of those. And one of those is a former sitting senator here, Ben Toma. I want to see that son of a bitch rolled up. And actually, what I want to see is rin tin tin chew on him a little bit, and then put him in the back of the car and watch him bake in the sun down at the Crocodile Inn.
I was going to say watch a couple of Belgian Malinois living their best life for a little bit, and
Oh
then
God, I have no idea.
Sorry,
We almost got him. Get him, Fido. We almost got him. Get him, Fido. I think we almost got him.
He's struggling.
So one of the things that
Stop resisting.
One of the things just to remind on all of that. Remember back during the 2020 election and the aftermath thereof, Sidney Powell and the rest of them were talking about how a lot of the data was passed through Italy.
Yeah,
right.
I do.
Now, I
not just Italy. Wait a second. Let's back
no,
up.
no, I know, but Italy
I saw
Italy.
all of the evidence that Cyber Ninjas. I saw all of those PCAPs. I watched all that just in Arizona, from the Arizona EAS servers that they did a cursory view of. They saw 800 anonymous connections into those Windows boxes, and remember, those voting machines can instantiate two different operating systems at the same time. And you would never know if you were on the operator if they were running, right? So there was connections from China, there was connections from Italy, there was connections from Venezuela, from Colombia. There was connections from all over the place. It wasn't just Italy, but the data did go through Italy. You're right. There was some of that.
I thank you, and I appreciate that, Steve. Just to add I was looking at it from a European politics perspective. The two things that come to mind in 2020, knowing full well that Italy was going to shift center right by having Italy be implicated in the data stream on stealing the election, that keeps Giorgia Meloni on a leash because now she's implicated by that. Trump now holds her leash, right? And she gets to then turn around and be the hero and say, no, oh yeah, the previous administration did this. You see where I'm going with this? Because look at how he schmoozed Meloni. Look at what happened last week. Do you really think the Italian police did the friggin' legwork to pick up the Ukrainian who bombed the Nord Stream 2 pipeline? Of course not. We did that work, and we gave that politically to Meloni in the same week that Trump brought the entire EU to Washington to struggle session them openly about peace. They go back home and want war. Like, do you see the Trump is creating a classic triangulation play between Germany and France and the EU on one side and Italy on the other. He's building up Giorgia Meloni and he's building up Italy to be the first ones to either crack out of the EU or take it over. And the key to that is someone has been buying the fuck out of Italian debt.
Yeah,
by the way,
I see it a little bit different.
The Italian-German bond spread has collapsed to historic lows. Okay, and meaning that Italian debt is trading at a historic low discount to German bonds of the same maturity. So it's down below a percentage point. And there's something real there. There's something going on there. So I think that's part of it.
I don't disagree with that.
But I saw that's the only reason I brought it up. I just thought from a geopolitical perspective, this is very interesting.
Yeah, I saw a humiliation ritual is what I saw. I saw them all waiting out in the hallway with basically the message is you're not relevant anymore and your days are numbered. I'm going to entertain you and you're gonna have your court with the king, but it's going to be very brief and it's not going to be what you think it is, and you're not going to be able to present your case. And I would have loved to have been in the room when they went in one-on-one because that would have been fantastic. I can tell you how it would have gone if it was me.
Mhm.
Next,
Bam. Oh,
what do you want? No,
Yeah.
we're not going to give you another dude that looks like a chick that was your father to marry. Go fuck yourself. Next, what do you want?
Next.
You want more bombs?
Next.
Go fuck yourself. Next, yeah. I mean, that's what I saw. But
Mhm.
when you contrast that with Putin, you're right. That conference had nothing to do with peace. That's that was
But
way about resources and about
yes.
dividing up trade routes and establishing trade routes. And I want to see if this Bering Sea tunnel concept actually rears its head in some way, shape, or form, because I see that coming too.
Yeah, but you have to resolve Ukraine first, and that's why they won't resolve it, right? That's why Zelensky had to go back home and say we're not giving up any territory, and he has to change his tune at all. He has to read this. There's two reasons for that. One, he can't, because if he does, he's going to get killed immediately. Two,
Yeah,
he's
he's a
also
big
being told by
miss.
yeah, and two, the Europeans are telling him not to do so because this is important. I think it's a point that a lot of people don't, why don't, really grok. Why won't they give away? Why won't they accept Crimea as Russian, even though it's been Russia for 10 years now, 11 years now? Why won't they accept, the breakaway republics of the Donbass? Why won't they do any of this stuff? Why won't they give them, autonomy within Ukraine? Why won't they do that? Because what they don't want to do, they don't want to sign a peace treaty, which is what Trump and Putin, this is why Putin came to Alaska, because Trump said peace treaty. We can change the legal structure of Ukraine. These oblasts and Crimea are now Russia, and no longer can the ambiguity of who owns this stuff be used as a means by which to demonize the Russians and justify the aggression. Once the peace treaty is signed, then any aggression that NATO wants to get involved with vis-a-vis those oblasts and Russia
Or
is
Article
now,
5, yeah.
they're now the aggressor, and there's no way to spin it that it's Putin.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And Putin loves that because Putin understands how to play that game. And Trump understands that as well. And the Europeans understand it, which is why Zelensky was told by the British in March of 2022, don't sign a peace treaty. Don't sign to surrender.
And
Like,
the
don't.
peacekeeping force was also just dumb. That's all that
Right.
was. That was
Mm-hmm.
that's never going to happen. But I think that's gonna resolve itself organically over the next few months, because Ukraine's out of troops. They don't have enough troops to. I mean, it's 1,000-mile front. Let's call a spade a spade. The Russians and the Germans had how many millions on that? A couple of million on that sailing, that front, and
Well,
they
that
went back and
understood.
forth for how long?
And that
Yeah,
point goes both ways. So that if this is why the Europeans keep trying to get Trump to come in, because if they know that the Russians are, they're taking territory with very thin lines. They know full well that if we were to do the full NATO thing with full air support and everything else, the Russians are going to lose territory. And then it becomes a real war. And then they have to fight
I
it out
think
with hundreds of thousands of troops. And
I
that's
hate to disagree with you, Tom, but that'll be a week-long orgasm of success followed by months and months and months of retreat. We don't have the logistics to go over there and fight that war. We gave all our strategic stockpile watch to get blown up over the last 2.5 years. There's no there. We can't produce shit in this country, in any meaningful fashion, not even artillery rounds or bullets. So even if we wanted to, it's a week-long deal, and then we start retreating.
and Steve, if that conflict were to play out that way, that would actually be the strategic play, which is to, if you want to, as my friend Ian, as our mutual friend Ian Burlingame likes to remind us, the best way to keep World War III from happening is to destroy all the armies built to fight World War III, and bleed out all the weapons that were built, that were produced to fight World War III, and you bleed them out over time with a whole bunch of low grade conflicts. Not saying that Ukraine is a low grade conflict, but the way it's being fought compared to the way it could be fought is a low
It's
grade
being fought
conflict.
exactly the way we fought Afghanistan and Iraq. It's just
Mhm.
it's just an attrition on both sides. There's no There's no
Right.
strategic intent to solve anything. It's just this back and forth, you know,
Well, from the Russians'
dodging
perspective, it's
blows.
absolutely a strategic goal of destroying as much of destroying the army that NATO built over and over and over again, and doing so with as few losses of manpower as possible. And I think the way the Russians have fought this war has been very, very smart. It's been, cheap artillery shells and cheap drones versus very expensive, you know, very
Well,
expensive
they've
material.
lost a lot of shit too, right? But
They have,
the
of
difference
course, they
is
have.
they've replenished most of it. And, you know, I agree with you. I think Putin has shown tremendous restraint,
Of course, he has.
tremendous,
Yes.
because when they went into the Kursk region, he could have overwhelmed them very quickly, and he didn't do it. He
Nope.
just slowly moved in troops and slowly pushed them out.
Yep.
And that is you make the case either way, right? The Russians lost the war because they haven't fought it or prosecuted it the right way. But I see it as another quagmire like Iraq. Like we had
Right.
no stated. So when I got on the ground in '04, there was no fucking plan. There was no. I
Mm.
don't care what anybody says. There was no plan there.
Right.
We barely had troops with generators in order to give them power so they could communicate, and we were barely moving supplies around the country. First responders, any of the governance, all that shit was on its ass in 2004, and they were doing the coalition provisional authority, which was basically the U.S. was still in charge with a different flag, but there was no plan, and we were just reacting to the situation on the ground versus here's what we're going to do next. We're going to rebuild the infrastructure. We're going to rebuild the transportation system. We're going to do all these things. We didn't do any of that, and that none of that was
Mhm.
in the plan. I see the same thing with Russia. We're going to take the Donbass areas, the Russian speaking areas. We're going to hold them, and we're just going to beat the Ukrainians into submission, and that's
Yep.
pretty much what they've
And
done.
rebuild everything they've secured. Like Mariupol's been they've rebuilt a lot of Mariupol. They've blah blah blah, and all of that. That's important. And but the problem is, of course, that they haven't pushed as far enough away that they can actually secure much of the territory that needs to be. They need a peace deal so that they can get those people some get them out from underneath the threat of being bombed. And again, it goes back to the legal definition. If they ever get bombed again, it'll be Ukraine's fault, and there will be no confusion as to who is the aggressor then. And this passive aggressive bullshit British game of playing, oh, we're not touching you, we're not touching you, we're not touching you, and then you finally like, no, dude, fuck off. Well, I'm done. That's enough. And the Russians have a very strong case for why they did what they did. But from an international law perspective and everything else, it's problematic. And there are no good guys and bad guys here. It's all just people doing what they need to do. And
Well, I
well,
think the
no,
proof of the
there
pudding
are
is going
bad
to.
guys in the West, but as far as the
Yeah.
Russians are concerned, they're not the good guys. They're defending their home, and if you want to define that, if you want to define the good guys that way, you're more than welcome to do so. I'm not telling you shouldn't define it that way. What I'm saying is, though, you can easily make an argument, certainly from certainly from the Ukrainians' perspective, that what the Russians did in February of 2022 was was wrong, and that's the way it is. And it doesn't matter whether we think it's right or wrong or anything else. It's what happened. And you have to realize that understanding is a three-edged sword. There's your side, my side, and the truth.
It's the what
And
so. Yeah. The what so.
right, and that's
Yeah.
the problem. And we're into that. But at this point, what everybody really wants, this is why I think Trump has been perfectly on point, which is to say we want the killing to stop because this is not going to do anything other than grind up more men. And there's no reason for more men to die.
Well, I think the
Unless
tell is going to be, Tom, because one of the things that I firmly, so I'll back up a little bit. I firmly believe that the Russians have all of the goods on the biolabs that were in Ukraine.
I agree.
Because Putin sent in, I believe it was 2 brigades into Chernobyl. And right on day one, he sent 2 brigades of troops in there to go after something. And I would assume it's probably one of the bigger biolabs that was there, and he's got the receipts. I think part of that meeting with Putin was about the evidence from the biolabs and the things that they've collected. Because he went all the way into Kiev to biolabs and grabbed scientists and data with the
Hmm.
special forces. There was a concerted effort on day one and day two to go after those labs. So it means he had actual intelligence that we were doing something there would affect Russians uniquely versus anything else, right? Because you
Right.
don't send a fucking brigade after a nuclear wasteland for no
Mhm.
reason. That's a shitload of people. And a Russian brigade is a hell of a lot bigger than a US brigade, but that's still a shitload of people. And if you're going to
Yep.
move them into an area, it means you're going in there for an objective that you know is highly dangerous. So when I look back at that, and then I look at this meeting in Alaska, I see these are two guys that are trading not only intel, but he's getting the goods because all of those biolab stuff leads back to where? Right back to the EU, right
Right.
back to Fauci, right back to Fort
Yep.
Detrick, right?
Yep.
And there's a money trail that goes along with that as well as money laundering. So I'm very curious to see. And the tell's going to be if they release that information because I don't
Well,
care
I
what
think
anybody thinks. I think there is a mountain of evidence right there that implicates almost everybody we've been talking about since we started the show, especially Obama.
I agree, and I think that that's why when think about the order of events going back to pre going back to Epstein and then the all of the stuff that's happened in the last month. And what was the inciting incident? The trade deal with the EU that all of a sudden came up out of nowhere. It all was Tulsi Gabbard as DNI went to Brussels and to the UK, and then she came home and nobody talked about it. And there were no press releases about it. And she didn't do a YouTube video on it. One of the only things she hasn't done a goddamn, interview and YouTube video on explaining all of her actions was that trip, because that's the trip where she presented them all the information. That's what I think, because that's when the dam really started to bust wide open. And
Well, they, from what I
now
understand,
we're just watching a whole bunch of dominoes being knocked down.
well, from what I understand, and I don't have confirmation of this, but I've heard this a couple of times just in the last week that we've stopped sharing intel with Five Eyes. If that's the
She said
case,
it on Friday. She said it on Friday.
that is a massive, massive
Yeah.
shift. Should have done it.
Yeah,
Should have done
I
that
didn't
shit.
realize that when you said that. It's fucking crazy. That's huge.
That is huge. And that
Yes.
that it just let me put it in context for your audience and
Sure.
non-military types. We've had systems called SIPR and NIPR, wait, non-classified secret intel or internet routing protocols. We have SIPR and NIPR, and we have a couple other systems that are even higher than that. We've always shared through in Iraq, we called it the coalition net, but it was basically SIPR light. And we've shared that and intel on those networks with the Australians, with the Europeans, with you name it, for decades. And for them to say that overnight is not just go fuck yourself, but it's go fuck yourself and figure it out on your own. Because of
Mhm.
all of our, and let me add a little more context. You have satellite imagery, you have satellite systems, you have drone systems that are constantly broadcasting on some of these networks, depending on the classification of the asset that's deployed. And you can get a lot of real-time actionable intelligence out of that. To turn all that off means they are effectively blind because they have their own satellite system, but it is nowhere near as sophisticated as ours. So for them to turn that off means
Yep.
that there's something even more insidious that we don't know about that they're working on in Europe that made us do that. And it's not
Mhm.
just, you're bad people and you want to kill Trump. This is what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
Why are you doing that? We're cutting this off right now. That
Yep.
when I heard that, I was like, I gotta verify that.
That's an axe
That's
to the power line. That's cut the phone lines.
that's exactly what it is. Cut the hard lines to your network. Just bam. And when I heard it, I was like, holy shit.
No
I can't
formality of
tell
like,
you.
hey, we're slowly going our own ways and this is how we're going to hand it off to you.
Well,
It's
here's the
just,
date. We'll stop sharing
and
intelligence.
here's how
Use the
you can do it if
assets.
you want, and you can buy from our defense. That's
None
just
of
straight
that.
up change the keys.
Yeah. That's a huge that I cannot understate just
That is,
overstate just how big of a deal that
Is
is
it
and what a
Pine Gap
separation that
in
is.
Australia? Pine Gap, is that the place?
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
it's
always
out in
been
the
like
middle,
hyper classified. Yeah.
out in the middle of nowhere.
That's awesome. Fuck those people.
Well, what it does is what it says is it signals a massive shift away from sharing with the Europeans, but it also says that there's something else we haven't heard about that's going to come out in the news that's going to shock people. And my guess is it has something to do with those drones back in um,
December.
November, January, whatever that was.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
something tied to that too, because Trump keeps bringing it up, right? And look,
He does?
I hear shit all the time. I don't put any stock into it until I start seeing a narrative develop around it. And there's
Mhm.
no narratives around this Five Eye thing. That's not how the game's played. Typically, you want to inform like they've been informing the public about all the malfeasance of all the players associated with January 6th and, John Bolton and Brennan and all the other Clapper, Hayden. They've exposed a lot of their malfeasance. They developed the story to educate the population. They're not doing any of that in this case. And that's a
Mhm.
massive shift from how we operate. We don't operate like that, especially
That's true.
with the
That's very
Europeans.
true.
We are
Yeah.
very overt about how we communicate. We over
Mhm.
communicate about why we're doing things with them. And we have been staunch allies for 80 years. That doesn't change
Yep.
overnight unless the calculus changed to the point where it's not supportable.
Yep.
So,
Agreed.
and I'll bet you some of
That's
this
a
comes,
huge point, Steve. Huge point.
yeah.
No,
So,
absolutely. I mean, and that actually makes me feel even better about where we are, because I mean, think about it. Again, big change. That means this is the end of the old. Like, the rules based order is going away. Like,
yep.
they're writing new rules, and it's but the process has to be, it's a process. It takes, you've got to break each piece down bit by bit by bit. You can't just, hey, tomorrow this is the way it works, and we're going to have Russia and the United States are going to get together, and it's going to be kumbaya, or the Russian equivalent thereof, and blah blah, and that's that. No, can't be that way. It has to be, you have to break down every aspect of the old system, bit by bit, angle by angle, intelligence sharing, defense, mutual
Well,
defense,
one
NATO,
thing,
Article 5, all of this stuff has to all be
yeah.
broken down bit by bit by bit. And that's a process, and that takes time.
Yeah. One thing Burlingame said to me that we were talking on the phone about a week ago, and every time I talk to him, it takes me like 3 days to process all things come out of his mouth because he's a deep thinker,
Mm-hmm.
right? And he was talking about how when Trump went to Saudi Arabia, went to the Middle East, that was you as a new king, you don't go to a subordinate kingdom and hold court. The subordinate
Mm-hmm.
king comes to you and holds court in your castle.
Right.
And I I literally I was stuck on that for days because he was right. He's absolutely right. Right. I don't know what the Middle East connection is to all this yet and how it's going to tie back to the Middle East, but I guarantee you there's something there that's going to come out as well. And it's going to tie back to this Five Eye thing. Because look, we have a lot of intelligence. CENTCOM has a lot of assets in, 4 different countries there and huge bases in one of them that's, you know, highly, highly classified. There's a lot of highly classified things there. So I think that all of this is tied together, and we're going to see some disclosure around it. It's all going to tie back to January 6th and this election stuff because it's all
Mm-hmm.
intertwined. And I think when people hear it, they're going to be shocked. Just like I think we're going to see some disclosures from the Diddy stuff and the Epstein stuff that we haven't heard about yet. That's going to blow up Hollywood, and I think we're going to see some of that come back, and because all this stuff's tied together, right?
Yep.
All these NGOs and all these players are all very incestuous in the across the spectrum of what they were working on. Like any stinky pile of corruption, money laundering, and child trafficking dog shit, the Clintons, you can smell the Clintons on it. They have been involved in just about everything, and they've built all these vast networks of NGOs that are all tied together to move things around. We're going to see some of that come out too, and I think it's all going to tie back to this January 6th stuff. And I read Friday that Prakash Patel has arrested 39 people inside the FBI for criminal prosecution. 39.
I hadn't heard that
That
yet.
is a
That's
huge step. It's true. That's a huge step, right? Again,
Mhm.
you gotta preface all these things with it. I can't verify it because you don't know if the shit's
Right.
true or not. But the DNI piece, if Tulsi Gabbard said that as the DNI,
Yeah,
wow,
she released it on
that's
Friday that she's not sharing Five Eyes information as it pertains to the Russian Ukraine negotiations. All of that's been taken off the table. Not everything, just that one, which is the most important, which is the fulcrum on which all of this stuff now depends. Getting
yeah,
peace and getting a peace deal there matters, right?
yeah.
So
I agree with your assessment of what they're doing to dismantle the city of London. What I want to see next is what's going to happen with the WEF and with Larry Fink and all of that, and how that's going to play out. I'd be curious to see how that's going to play out.
I am too, but I'll be honest with you, Steve. You know, I just think they're all whistling past their graveyard at this point. I think Larry Fink is, I think BlackRock's been in trouble for a while. Why do I do. And I don't think the WEF is, all that powerful at this point. I think that,
I bring it up, Tom, because I'm just
yeah.
curious to see how that's going to implode. Right?
No,
We both
I
know
agree.
that they're lost. Right? They have to play their narrative all the way out now because they don't have any other cards to put on the table.
I think
Right.
But I'm curious to see how it's going to play out. Right?
Yeah, I think mostly Fink is going to be begging for mercy or suing for peace. You could make the argument that BlackRock has been put in charge of the WEF. Again, this is just instinct here. This is not necessarily my that I have like the goods on this one. I will preface these comments with that, but it's been on my radar for a long time that BlackRock is a massive company in terms of assets under management, but not a massive company in terms of its actual balance sheet. It's actually not a very big company, but it does control a tremendous amount of assets under management, our money, right? In the form of ETFs, and it's used that by voting our proxy to then have a big outsized effect relative to the size of the balance sheet and the actual capital that it controls, which, by the way, can easily be, have its, dick knocked in the dirt. It's not, the company doesn't have a huge book value. Okay.
I would love to see them tipped over.
Okay. And so I've been saying this. So this has been my argument for quite a long time now. I remember the first time I was ever, invited to go speak at a conference, and we were sitting out that weekend with a bunch of high net worth investors and a couple of patrons that came in to meet. And we sat out there smoking cigars, drinking whiskey. And I said, what is it with this BlackRock guy, this Fink guy? You got to think to yourself, when you look at it, at the end of the day, it's a company with, whatever they've got on their balance sheet of however much equity they actually have is like 40 or $50 billion shareholder equity. That's not a lot of money.
it's like less than
40 $50 billion. That makes him a mid cap in terms of shareholder equity. Okay. Like, it's not a lot of money in today's markets. So you say, well, I'm thinking to myself, if Fink thinks that he's going to run the world. Now, this was back in 2019, 2020. If Fink thinks he's going to run the world along with the WEF and everything else, there's a bunch of guys over in Wall Street going, we could take this guy out tomorrow if we put our mind to it. We own the Fed. We own this. We own that. We, boom, 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 all we need is a president. I mean, effectively, we can take this guy out. And what's funny is, to me, when you look at it that way and you start thinking about the circles that these guys are all, the pond that these guys are all swimming in, these sharks are swimming in, you say to yourself, yeah, this is the real fight. And so what I would say is watch BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard, Blackstone, all of them, and don't abreact to every move they make to do X, Y, and Z as if they're continuing to build their kingdoms, but think of them as potential rearguard actions or defensive maneuvers in order to shore up other parts of their business. And once you reframe it that way, then assess the data that you're seeing, the move that they're making, and ask yourself, is it really this, or could it be that? That's kind of what, that's my whole modus operandi anyway. And
No,
that's how
I
you
appreciate it, because I'm not as tied into the financials as you are, right? I'm not
I know you
watching
are.
that.
I know. And that's why I bring
So
this stuff up. And what I'm saying is I look at the WEF when they announced that, Fink and the other guy were going to be co-chairs. I'm like, that's hilarious. The United States just took over the World Economic Forum, or took it back from the Europeans, and now they can wind it down, because
that's what I hope to see
BlackRock's been
right there.
told, look, if you want to survive this, your job now is to wind this shit down. And there will be a gold watch for you at the end of the thing, but you're not going to be running anything, Larry. Now, Fink is a really arrogant man, and he could also be in trouble and refusing to not go down without a fight, because he doesn't have any other options, right? Same thing with von der Leyen and the entire EU and what I like to call Davos. Like, they don't have any other options except to play it all the way out to the end, right?
And their controllers
they have
might
to
kill
play their
them.
narratives out.
Well, their controllers might fucking kill them.
Right, exactly. So Fink may just be. No, Tommy, your point is exactly right. What if Larry Fink is just American Zelensky?
He probably
from
is.
a financial perspective.
Probably is. Probably a bright guy, but he probably. I want to go back to what Steve said earlier, and I think it's important, especially for myself, because like I look at just how much I fucking hate the left, and even in like the 6 years of doing this podcast, how much I've moved from like, well, let's all try to get along, to like when I see like Trump rolling out the National Guard, like I understand their explanations from it, but I find my own reflexive answer, and it's not a good one, but I find it, I go, I don't give a fuck them. That is exactly how bad things gain momentum and go downhill. So from someone like me, who I'm very biased, I fucking hate the left. I think COVID was intentional. I think they stole the elections. And I see this, I go, this is quote unquote right. This is justified. But if I were a psychopath and trying to control America, I would see the writing on the wall last year and be like, the left has gone too far. How would I wrap this up in an American flag and MAGA? I'd say shut down the border, all that shit. And then what would be the thing I did behind the scenes? So I would sacrifice things like the border and the drug trade and USAID if I had a bigger goal, which was a control grid, a Palantir intelligence control grid. That's how I would do it if I was in charge. I'd say wrap it up in the flag of Trump and America if you want to bring in this thing. And I don't know if that's the case, but I have to be cautious about that, because I know that's exactly how I would do it. Is I would wrap it up in a conservative, instead of the whole climate change leftist, bring in all the third worlders. I would wrap it up in a new package, and it could just be that they're similar, and that doesn't necessarily mean they're the same. But when I look at all this, I go, what are the chances that they're willing to make a bunch of smaller sacrifices if the big golden goose is the, whatever, the 1984 Web 5.0 fucking control grid? I don't
Well,
I have to
so
be
I,
cautious.
I,
Anytime
I
I
have a
start
lot
feeling
of,
rah fuck them, I know that the logical part of my brain is going out the window, which is
well,
not.
that's your early warning system that you're descending down the path. But I think there's two things at play here. Well, there's more than that, but there's two really main things at play here, because you're right. Unity is going to be the hill we die on. If we don't unify as a country, it will be the hill we die on for a
Right.
lot of reasons, right?
Yep.
But let's put it in perspective of why that is. So you have a huge portion of the population that's been vaxxed. You have a portion of the population that has vaccine injuries or deaths in their family. You have people just dropping like flies. We have to solve that problem. And that population is still in denial that the pharmaceuticals and their doctor could have steered them in a way that permanently injured them, right? So there's that narrative. And where I'm going with that is they may be on the left or the right. It doesn't matter. At some point, they're going to come towards the middle, because they're going to realize that they were duped by the same people that they trusted and the same people that we trusted, because both sides of the fence trust the medical system, trust their doctors, right? And we've been ingrained since we were embryos. Trust police,
Hmm.
trust your doctor, trust the news, trust the trust the pharmaceutical industry. They have your best interest in mind, right? There's
Right.
going to be a point where those narratives fuse together and people realize our interests are not that different. The people that we should be looking at are the people that perpetrated this, and that maybe our belief system was tailored strictly to divide us. I'm already starting to see some of those narratives popping up in the social space, but more importantly, where I'm seeing is I'm starting to see studies come out that are showing just how fucking dangerous these mRNA vaccines are. And
Yep.
that's just one piece, right? Then there's the piece around the education system and the grooming and all those things that they're doing, the education system and the indoctrination into communism. Once people start to get the 411 on what was going on there and how that's been heavily manipulated by China, you're going to see people moving back towards the center, right? The pendulum swings both ways all the time,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're moving closer and closer back to the center across the spectrum of political beliefs because people are starting to realize that, wait a minute, maybe we've been lied to about a lot more than we think. Maybe it's not just the left and right. Because look, the average person, you said this the best, Tom. The average person doesn't give a fuck about Epstein, right? The average
Does not.
person, it doesn't give a shit about um, whether the news is telling the truth or not. They basically want to know the weather, and they want to know, if they can go on their trip in a month, right? Okay,
Yep.
let's use that premise for a second. But when nobody trusts the media anymore, nobody trusts the government, neither side. So at some point, those narratives come together, and people realize that the common ground is there. I think we're heading towards that moment. It won't be
Oh yeah.
everybody, but it'll be at least 70% of the population realizes that everything they've seen over the past 20 years has been absolute horseshit. And I'm already starting to see it. So I'm hopeful that the unity is going to be there. The question is, how far do we take it? Right? Because I want to see
Yeah.
Bill Gates strung up. That guy needs to hang for crimes against humanity, along
I,
with Tedros and a number of other assholes, right? Burks,
mm-hmm.
Fauci, take your
Right.
pick, right? I think those moments are coming. And I'm
They have to.
concerned about, I'm concerned about Palantir and the control grid because Peter Thiel's a transhumanist. He's going to do a 4-hour series on the Antichrist because he's so sold on the Antichrist. There's a lot of danger there, but
Mm-hmm.
ultimately I don't think they're going to be successful because it's like every other king, right? He puts his spies out to see who's talking shit about him and who's inciting violence. This is the same thing, only it's done through technical means. There's a lot of ways to fuck with that without having to blow things up and take that, bring it to its knees. And I think that that'll happen too. Because remember, we have enemies too, and they don't want
Mm-hmm.
this any more than we do because they don't want profiles built on all of their all their leadership and all of their facilities, which is what Palantir does. It builds profiles. And,
Mm-hmm.
from an intelligence perspective, if you're Iran or you're China, you don't want them being able to predict all your moves. So you're going to disrupt and you're going to interdict as much as you possibly can. And we haven't seen that yet. Maybe we have. We just haven't got the class of unclassified version of it. But I'm seeing on the cyber side, I'm seeing attacks doing this:
Mm-hmm.
ransomware attacks, social engineering attacks. Hell, I get called from the Maricopa County Sheriff every single week with a warrant for my arrest. So I'm just telling you that there's a number of criminal elements that are really active right now, and the nation states are active right now from a cyber perspective. And
Right.
what I would see probably in the next 12 months is some kind of a disruption to the power grid that's
Mm-hmm.
done by cyber. Because look, it's cheap, right? There's no repudiation. It's the cheapest way to bring a country and disrupt their operations. Just take down the power grid. They can operate for maybe a week on generator power. You keep down 2 weeks. Guess what? You've disrupted them for 5 years, and you
Right.
don't have to expend any forces. There's no bullets. There's no beans. The best way to
Mm-hmm.
do it, and you can come in and take over the infrastructure. Just start it
I
right
know.
back up. Yeah.
I know. I know.
I don't know where I was
It's
going with that, but I was going somewhere
I
with it.
liked
I
it.
completely
I
lost
liked
my
it.
well.
fucking
No,
train of
I
thought.
think ultimately your
I
theme
said rah
here.
rah. Be careful of rah rah. And it went that way.
Well, I think your theme here, Steve, is something that I've been worried about the entire time, which is, and you're complete, and it's what we're actually talking about in the entirety of this conversation, which is the loss of trust in institutions. Like we want people to lose faith in their media when their media is a bunch of gaslighting shitbags that work for foreign entities or globalists or whatever you want to call them. We want people to lose faith in their politicians who are owned and operated and corrupt and everything else. What we don't want them to do is to lose complete and utter faith in the institutions themselves that they represent. And I think that is the place that we're at. That's the thing we have to guard against. It's the thing we're being gaslit into wanting to believe. I just let it burn it all the fuck down, and everybody chuckles and collapsitarian. That is what we as commentators in the space have to remind everybody. You don't go there, because that's the end of civilization.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's not that every move that Trump does, it's not that I'm going to be out there sucking Trump's cock over every goddamn move that he makes.
No, BioClandestine's doing that for you. He's way ahead of you. He's on his knees every day, sucking Trump off.
Whatever.
Two-handed,
left-handed. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And somebody needs to, I'll be honest with you, somebody fucking needs to do it, Steve. And you should just leave him the fuck alone, to be honest with you, while we take a more balanced approach.
That's a whole separate conversation. And I agree with you. The president's trust. Somebody get in there and hook him up.
But what I mean is, what I'm getting at is that, we have to be willing to accept the fact that he's got the best interests at heart. And if he hasn't earned that trust yet of the people who voted for him 3 fucking times, then it's already fucking over and they've already won.
He's the general you have.
I think, look.
And you're going to have to accept the fact that it's going to be messy and ugly and it's not going to work. And some of the shit's not going to work. And we're going to have to rebuild crap that they won battles on and all the rest of it. We're going to have to accept that. There's a lot of people on fucking Twitter and in this space that don't want to accept that because it's easier to criticize than it is to build. And I'm fucking over it.
I think.
Period. I'm just fucking over it.
Tom, we're headed for a revolution regardless at this point. Regardless. You can't reform any of these institutions. Some of these institutions are so corrupt that no matter what you do, you'll never reform them. Like I have a problem with the FBI, absorbing the ATF. I don't have a problem getting rid of the ATF, but I have a problem with the FBI absorbing the ATF. I have a problem with the DEA still being around. I have a problem. Those organizations are corrupt to the point where they're just not reformable. If I look at the IRS, why the fuck is the IRS still in business? Why are they still outside the Constitution, right? And I'm being somewhat facetious, so just bear with me.
You really are, because you're like, we're 230 days into the process of trying to get rid of the fucking income tax. That's clearly where we're going. Like,
I would hope so, but my point of being somewhat facetious about this is, look, I think that we've passed the culmination point where we are going to be able to accept the oligarch class in its current form. And that's why I say revolution at some point is inevitable, because that class and that strata has gotten past the point of reason. And any society that's ever gone through this, in 100 years ago or 200 years ago, it was an aristocracy. Mm-hmm. Now it's an oligarch. It's the same aristocracy. It's just different format of aristocracy. Sure. You're going to see people rise up against that, right? Do I think nation states will survive at some point? Yes, I think they will, but it's going to be ugly and messy getting through that. And whatever that looks like on the other side, I would hope that involves advanced technologies. I would hope that it involves a reformed medical system where it actually prevents and helps people, live longer, versus a for-profit motive, which is where we're at now. And, that's what I'm hopeful for. Well, we'll see how it plays out.
Well, I'm just always, maybe my problem with your commentary on this is the use of the word revolution, because I don't really like to believe in the idea. Revolutions are not, they're not, what's the word I'm looking for? They're not positive events.
We don't want kinetic.
They're not strictly principle, like French Revolution.
What I mean by this is we don't want revolutions empower revolutionaries to do terrible, terrible things. What we actually want are rebellions. In a sense, I think
don't
it's
disagree with that.
I think it's
I'll
important.
caution you in saying that a revolution can happen without kinetic. Right? We're in an information space. We're not in a kinetic space. I don't see this going 100% kinetic. What I see is, and you said this before, so I'm going to use your own words against you.
Sure, fair enough.
You're going to see the economy collapse. You're going to see the IRS show up to repossess houses. The whole neighborhood's going to show up and go, no, you're not taking our houses. Go fuck yourselves and get the fuck out of here and don't ever fucking come back. Or we will pick up rifles. That's how I think it's going to go. Mass non-compliance. Because if the system's not compliant, there's not a system in charge anyway, right? So that's how I see it going down. I don't see this.
That's okay. Then you and I are agreed. Then you and I are agreed. I don't consider that. I don't consider that revolution. Revolution is when the fucking commies pick up fucking rifles and start putting people in and start shooting people for wearing glasses.
Well, I think
revolutions end there.
Okay, we could agree to disagree on that because I think it's going to be a revolution for a couple of reasons. One, I think we're going to let's just say that some of this technology comes out, right? Let's start with anti-gravitics for a sec, right? Everybody thinks it exists. And I can tell you from experience, we do have technology that exists that's light years ahead of where we are right now. I know that for fucking fact, right? If just one of those technologies is released, just one, let's say alternative energy, like thorium reactors, salt reactors, let's say those come out, right? And you're a chemist. I know you're going to latch into this with both teeth.
I know the thorium molten salt is in process of becoming part of the equation.
Yeah, right.
I don't. Alone, that's fundamentally different than anti-gravitics, by the way. Like thorium molten salt is very simple.
Let's see.
The only barrier to it at this point is just chemical engineering and metallurgy. FYI, I know a lot about it.
You always got to stay in that linear mindset, right? You can't go off the reservation to go down the rabbit hole with.
Just go with the point, though. The Area 51.
The point is that
go ahead.
It's back to revolution. The point is that one of those technologies, if it's released and it's real, will revolutionize our society faster than they can implement any control, right? So if anti-gravitics are real and it's actually something we've mastered and something we have that's released to the public, that changes like 50 industries overnight. A construction industry, done. Road industry, done. Logistics industry, done. Overnight. And that will revolutionize humanity in ways we can't fully comprehend right now. And we're on the cusp of that too, right? That's why when I say revolution, that's what I'm talking about. I think that all this control grid and all this other horse shit is going to fall apart because humanity is moving in a different direction right now. As much as these guys want to be in control, the problem they have with the control grid is they don't have a vision for how they want it to be on the other side. No. We just want fucking control. I just want control. I gotta have control.
No, Steve.
I gotta own it. I gotta tell you what to do.
I know.
It's gonna fall apart.
Oh, blessed rage for order, peril run. I'd go read Wallace Stevens, The Idea of Order, Key West. Like it's not fucking hard, right? The only thing you and I disagree on is the use of the word revolution.
That's it. I'm right, Colonel.
What I'm saying is the word revolution in a political context is a violent one.
Oh, I agree. I don't disagree with that at all, Tom.
That's what we all talk about technological revolution or a level up or whatever, fine. But when we use the word revolution, we just have to be very, very careful how we use it.
The problem with using the word revolution is we don't have a lot of revolutionaries in this country. They just don't exist. We have a lot of pissed off people, and anger is not a full blown revolutionary because you have to be a believer, right? Yeah. I mean. Obama's a communist. He's a believer. Yes. He believes in color revolution. He believes it. The problem is he can't sell it because the population's moved past it. Most of our population's like, you know what? I'm not picking up a rifle and going to Ukraine. I'm not going to pick up a rifle and go to the EU or Canada, right?
Nope.
And we'll see. And look, the litmus test is going to be in Canada, right? They're going full on communist with the climate lockdowns and all that. We'll see what happens if There's mass non-compliance there. What are they going to do? That's how I see it playing out. I don't see kinetic at all because there's not
Right.
enough believers, right? You got to have believers that are fervent in their belief. They're just
Agreed.
not. I mean,
No,
the younger generations that would fight this war, they're all like, they've all given up. Like, fuck it, I'm never going to own a house. Why would I go fight for that? In
Yeah.
fact, my kid the other day, I'm on the phone with my kid. My kid's doing marketing for a winery, right? And we're on the phone, and Dad, I just don't know why I care about this shit. I could go to work and come home and do work at home, but the same shit's going to be there tomorrow. It's not going to change my life any. So why should I do that? That's the whole generation. The whole
mm-hmm.
generation's like, we're fucked anyway. So why should I kill myself?
Yeah.
And I'm not going to kill myself for your cause because it doesn't do anything for me.
Bingo. And that's the Amber Burlingame model of these people aren't worth fighting for. Therefore, they're not going to win.
Yeah. Yeah.
What they're going to do is make our lives miserable on the way out the door.
That's fine.
I'm okay with that.
I got a million ways to fuck with people on the way out too. So
yeah. So you know, well, I mean, that's one way of putting it. And the other way of putting it is like, okay, you know, come at me, bro. We'll just rebuild. You know, there's nothing. You know, the only thing they can threaten us with is thermonuclear war, and everybody's basically said nuts to that fucking shit as well.
I don't think
that's it.
I don't see that happening. Or EMP. I don't see that either.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I don't see that. I just see a mass non-compliance. Like, we're going to do this. Go fuck yourself.
Non-compliance is not revolution. Non-compliance is the way revolutions are. That's the way we have to fight this. We have to not be gaslit into believing we have to take up arms and change the thing. That's the gaslight. That's what they want us to do. That's what they're going to try and gaslight us into doing. That's why they're going to try and activate, you know, the fucking IQ 60 Somalis and the blacks and everybody else. That's what they're trying to do, to get us to fight back. And then it devolve into violence. And what we really need to do is go, yeah, you're cute, fuck off. And then let Trump do the Lincoln thing. So yeah, you might have to suspend posse comitatus. He might have to put some fucking people in jail. He might have to do a bunch of that stuff. But if you only allow brush fire, if you stamp it out at the brush fire level, and we're like, yeah, but you're not going to go any further than that. You're not putting those troops in the suburbs. America's too big to fucking govern. You just said it. We don't have enough troops to lock down Los Angeles, for Christ's sake. You think you're going to lock down the United States?
Well, and the other thing to consider, Tom, is there's guys like me. They declare martial law. I'm picking up arms, and I'll be the fucking head of the insurgency. Of course. I'll take the fight to the enemy. I won't fuck around. And I'm not the only one saying that.
Well, yeah, there's an entire generation of GWAT vets here that are like,
that's right.
I mean, you train them in the sandbox. And I look at guys like Dale or Clay. I'm like, good luck.
Yeah, like, good luck. Clay Martin's just like me, right? He's just like me. He's like, yep, go ahead, do it, because I'll pick up arms. I mean. And,
like, dude,
we'll play games like Milton fucking Bradley. We'll show you games you never thought of.
Yeah,
like we'll do the boom in the night game, where you're at dinner and shit goes boom at the night. And you're not around anymore. Yeah. That's how that goes, right?
Like, yeah,
they know it. Trump knows it. Trump knows it. He's not that stupid. No. I mean, there's people around him that are that stupid, but he's not that stupid to say we can hold this whole country. Because even with 10 million troops, even with 30 million troops, couldn't hold this whole country. I don't care what anybody says. That whole Red Dawn moment that people were talking about, like, you're high. First of all, you move that many troops in here, how are you going to feed them?
Yeah,
not going to happen. Wake the fuck up.
Not going to happen. It's all to get people to exist up here and imagine things that are not real, as opposed to, and keep them in that fantasy world, as opposed to the reality of, you know, look at how hard it's been for the Russians with their army and their, you know, World War I style logistics running on trains still in the 21st century, wondering how, you know, why they can't take over, you know, Ukraine. Like, and the Ukraine is what? The size of Texas?
That's still a big landmass, man.
I know. Like, exactly. It's like, you know, and you know, and there ain't much in Texas, for Christ's sake. And so, you know, okay, so we take over this settlement, and then there's nothing for 60 miles. Now you got to march an army on 60 miles across the Texas fucking heat.
Yeah. Now, do I think things are going to suck for a while? Yeah. I
course.
think they
Yeah.
will, right? That's part of transition, but I don't see people. People are just too apathetic to pick up arms. By the way, I have some really terrible cigars to send you. Really terrible, because I know you like cheap cigars. Oh, they're
I will
terrible.
probably smoke them because
Oh, they're awful. God, they're awful. Just saying. Anyway, Tommy, I got to bounce and I have a hard
are
stop
they
in like two
Dominican?
minutes here. No, but I have some of those too. I can send you that are equally awful. I mean, I can send you Nicaraguan, Honduran, you name it. I got all the bad stuff
So
up here.
everything sucks right now. This is another thing about socialism. Socialism destroys everything. Of all the shit that's out there right now, the Honduran cigars that I found are the best. Like the Nicaraguans are too bitter. The Hondurans are at least reasonable, and they're not in stock anywhere either. And if they are, they're $10 a fucking piece. And I'm like, yeah,
Yeah, they're
no, I'm not
ridiculous.
doing that.
Yeah.
So
I will
you
tell you
know,
how much I've spent on cigars in the last 2 months.
Um,
Expensive now.
yeah, if you've got a hard out, we can wrap it up. But
sure.
yeah, no, but I think what you just said, Steve, is probably what is it gonna suck for a bit? Yeah, but I mean, right now that's kind of the only out, and the other out is just outright totalitarian dictatorship or World War III. It's like it's
I'd rather suck with an economic,
you can
economic
you can roll with it.
situation.
You
Yeah,
can roll with it. Doesn't mean it's not gonna
just
suck.
kinetic. I don't want it all
Well,
at
no,
all.
that's a
Look,
fire
we
that
can,
turns into a firestorm. And
we
I,
know how
I
to tighten our belts. We know how to get together, like a little bit of economic, a little bit, or even a lot of economic privation. You know what that does? It just rebuilds communities and families and everything else. It reverses the deracination of the American population.
funny you should say that.
It ends that bullshit, and
Yeah, funny you should say that.
it's a good thing. So
Well, that's what I've been focused on for the last 6 months is working
yep,
on building resilient communities because I
yep,
think that's our way out, right?
of course it is. Of course it is.
So
Yep.
anyway,
but
Tom, I
yeah,
appreciate you jumping on, bro. Tommy, I appreciate you scheduling
I
this,
guess
man. This was
thank you both for
good
coming
Absolutely, this was
on,
fun,
man.
conversation.
Steve.
Yeah,
We hadn't chatted in a while, and
I like it.
it's funny whenever you just see whenever you see a person only through their Twitter feed, it's just never reality.
No,
Fantastic.
especially me because I'm always firing sable rounds across my if I'm
I
not
know.
I was in Twitter jail for like 2 weeks because of what I said to Pramila Jayapal, but it was true. She's a fucking troll and she should be under a bridge collecting tolls and not in the Congress. But it is what it is, right? How could someone that butt ugly be in Congress? My God.
Yeah.
Like you look at her, go, ah, my God, you're ugly. Did you hit every branch on the way down to the ugly tree? Jesus Christ.
This is a
Sorry,
two
I
bagger.
digress.
Two
Shame.
bagger. Jesus Christ. All right. All right.
Started with an anti-woman joke, ended with a couple more. All
Hey,
right,
man,
yeah.
who gives a shit? We'll wrap it up, gentlemen. Thank you both for your time. Everybody listening, please go in the description. Please go follow their Twitters. Please go check out Tom's podcast, blog, all that good shit. And yeah, thank you both for your time, and we'll do it again.
Absolutely.
Take
All
care,
right, guys.
gents.
Thank you so much.